Hello, everybody. My name's Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we have a discussion, come up with some thoughts, some ideas, but sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. And so today's topic, well, it's election day. And no trainers, I'm not going to ask you who you voted for, and I'm also not going to ask you which side do you want to take, the positive or the negative for the training. What I want to talk about today is agreement. And what I want to talk about is, in particular, what do you do when your client doesn't agree with you? I'm not necessarily talking about owner compliance. I'm more talking about you say, do this. Your client says, I'm not doing that. And not only am I not doing that, but I'm going to do something different. So, Bonnie, can we start with you today?
Sure.
All right.
Um, when a client of mine doesn't want to do something that I suggest, I try as much as I can to get them to talk about why they're being resistant,
Hmm,
because it usually is in something that they're having a problem with. I mean, I think, and I'm talking about myself too, I think with our own pets, animals, as it is with children, um, we identify, we bring our own past with us, and y- y- yeah, I think it can be transferred to your pet. So, for instance, I had a client who had a dog that bit a few people, and they're in an assisted living type facility, and they did not want to put a basket muzzle on their dog. And I had to sit down and talk with them and talk to them about their resistance and tell them that I was not going to work with them any longer, that I didn't feel safe, that it wasn't that they couldn't walk around their community and have that dog bite somebody else. And they came through. They actually already had the basket muzzle, but they couldn't bring themselves to use it because they felt it was mean, or it was restricting their dog in some way, and they didn't see it as a solution. And I helped them to push past that because they wanted to continue working with me.
okay.
They didn't tell me why they were resistant, but that was okay, because the final result was that I could continue working with them and that that dog would not bite anybody else when they were out walking in their community. So, I think it's very hard because people are very emotional about their animals. Um, I remember Jeff in one of your videos, your client who thought it was cruel to ask her dog to sit before she put the food bowl down.
Okay.
Like, oh my God. That's like being a dictator, or, and who knows what she went through, what her parents made her do to get something that was something she wanted or needed, or just even something basic like eating, like food. What do you have to do to get fed? And I think that it's hard. I mean, sometimes when people have been resistant with me, I just kind of let it go. And then if I have another session scheduled with them, I'll bring it up again, or I try to find them another solution or another tool to use. But it's very hard to get people to, if they have a strong feeling about something that you feel would be good for their dog, to change. I mean, it's just, and I know Jeff knows this too. It's about like kibble. trying to convince somebody, be a little healthier, to give them some real meat or even canned food, something that's not so drying to their
Okay.
systems.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna cut me off, Joel? Um,
Well, you keep mentioning Jeff, so I was curious what what's
yeah,
take,
well,
what's Jeff's
Well,
opinion on it.
let
What
Bonnie
did you do
finish.
with?
She's got more stuff going on up there. What else you got, Bonnie?
yeah, well, I'm having the same thing with my dog with a prong. I got the damn prong. I'm gonna use it. Got to use it because it's just not working for me, the head halter, or for her. So I'm going there, and I had to look at my own resistance and say, okay, what does this mean to me? I'm a positive reinforcement trainer. But you know what? I can use the hot dogs with it. I can train her to heal with it. Um, we can go for enjoyable walks. And that's what I need to do. So you know, I'm taking my own medicine. And but it also will help me in the future when people are resistant, that a lot of times it has to do with stuff, that Yiddish word mishigas, that's going on with them and their own past and their own emotions. So um that's my story.
Okay. So how about it, Jeff?
Yes.
What did you do with that? With the woman she was talking about, and how do you deal with the client who says, "No, I'm not going to do that."
I grab him by the throat and no, I'm just kidding.
Put a
Positive
prong on them.
reinforcement, I see.
I mean, that particular Zoom consult that Bonnie was talking about, it's on my YouTube
It
channel.
was
And
so funny,
yeah,
Jeff.
I mean, we had a good time. I
I
busted her
know.
chops a little bit, but she was doing what I wanted her to do in one situation, like making the dog sit before she puts the leash on and open the door. So I use that to explain to her that's all you're doing by making the dog sit for food, sit before it comes up on the couch. Just add a little structure to its life. It was a puppy. It's not like she had major behavioral problems. That was an easy one. We had a good time, and part of that is, and it's nothing unique to me. I think a lot of us that are doing this a long time, it's not just about reading the dog. We have to know what kind of person we're dealing with. Like, I can't bust the chops of everybody.
Sure.
Every home I walk into. Some people that might be a little more sensitive, especially down here. I mean, they talk to me on the phone. They know where I'm from. They know I'm a Yankee. So
Mm.
so I have to tread a little carefully. Uh,
Hear ya.
all kidding aside, it's my job, right? I have this bag of tools, right? Physical tools, figurative tools, right? A knowledge base. It's my job to have multiple solutions for problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's reported to us may not actually be the root cause when we walk in that home. In fact, it rarely is, right? We're dealing with symptoms of root causes usually, right? Called behavioral problems. So it's my job. Like, I have no preconceived notion when I walk in a door as it relates to as it pertains to the dog. When I suggest a course of action for owners to take, I mean, most of the time there isn't resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time there's compliance issues. Are they going to actually do it, right? Which we talk about a lot here, and I know all
Yeah.
trainers agree with that. But there's times when we get resistance, or they're uncomfortable with something, and not necessarily a training tool. I mean, the thing that Bonnie's talking about was food and treats, making the dog perform
Yep.
obedience for food and treats. So it's not even like we were talking about, oh my God, I don't want to use a tool. Like, she didn't even want to make a dog sit for a cookie.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we do have to navigate that. It is our job not just to interpret the dog, but to understand the people that we're dealing with and how we can guide them to where they need to go. Now, there's exceptions to that rule. If a dog's quality of life, health, or safety are at risk, I am probably going to be a little more adamant about how I give that information to them, and I'll tell them straight to their face.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you cannot do this, or this can continue. I mean,
Mhm.
a dog bolting out of a door or whatever the case,
Sure.
something that is like legitimately putting the dog like in a high risk situation. I'm probably going to, I don't, not scare them into it, but just give them the reality of what can possibly happen
Mhm.
if they don't take, this course of action. And if they're really resistant, obviously I'll do everything I can. But at this point in my career too, I mean, uh, I don't want this to come out the wrong way. I'm just gonna say it like I think it. Like I'm usually right. Like I'm
Mhm.
usually picking the right way to
Right.
go.
Sure. You use your experience and
Yeah,
your
like I'm,
knowledge of what you've done
and,
to know that.
yeah, once in a while,
Mhm.
maybe I choose not necessarily the incorrect way, but a path of lower resistance, if you
Mhm.
will. But I'm usually right, and if there's still resistance, I'll give them other protocols or homework, if you will, to
Mhm.
practice. And not too long, probably last year, I was in a same-sex conflict home, two female pits. The young one started maturing,
Mhm.
fill in the blanks. It was bad. And
Mm.
I didn't even, I mentioned muzzle and no issue. When I took it out of my bag, you could see the husband's face just change. I thought he was going to hit me. I really
Mm.
did. Like he didn't even say, he just, and the whole energy in the room shifted. And, obviously I tried to, and he was just like, no way. Are you kidding? That, and it wasn't even about the dog. It was, that looks horrible.
Yeah.
What are
Mhm.
the neighbors going to think?
Yes.
Now, in my
Sure.
head, I'm like, I don't give a shit what your neighbors think.
Right.
I care about your dogs ripping each other's faces off.
Mhm. Sure.
Obviously, I can't say that because, going to Bonnie's point, they're emotionally involved. So I said, all right, you
Mhm.
know what? And I literally said, okay, well, this is what it looks like. We can revisit this in the future. I just wanted to present it to you so we could walk safely.
Mhm.
But the wife was on board, the husband wasn't.
Mm.
When there is a disconnect between the guardians,
Yeah.
I always go the route of the one that is not in agreement, not the one that agrees with me,
Mhm.
because it's easier to do something else for the one that doesn't agree with me than it
Yes.
is to get the one who doesn't agree with me to agree with us.
It's a switch. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So, but
Mhm.
again,
Yeah.
bottom
That
line is
definitely makes
I have
sense.
a bag full of tools, literally, physically, and figuratively. It's my job to have them all at my disposal in case that comes up. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, owner compliance is my biggest complaint, because people, if you're watching this and you're a dog owner, you need to do your homework. Please do what we say.
Okay. So David, does it really come down to adaptability? Does it come down to dealing with the situation and just adapting to the situation?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. I mean, and a lot of times you have to just, compromise if need be.
Mhm.
Not always, but sometimes. Um, and then you got to tread lightly. Let's say they do say, I disagree with what you're suggesting, and they're saying, well, I said, well, what have you been doing? Well, I've been rubbing the dog's nose in the elimination.
Yeah.
Or I've been kneeling them in the chest and holding their paws. Blah blah. Well, how's
Right.
that working out for you?
Yeah.
Well, then they're like, well, you got a point there.
Mhm.
It's things like that. So sometimes you can get agreement there.
Mhm.
Other times, if,
Mm.
if it's something like what Jeff was saying, as long as you're not harming the dog, hurting the dog, and there's nothing, no one's getting hurt, and
Mhm.
and as far as something that they're trying to do or they're thinking of doing, and in your mind you don't agree with what they're thinking, but it can't hurt.
Right.
I'll go along with it.
Mhm.
And it's not, and you got to be on tread lightly, because it's not like, oh, see, I told you I was right. Me as a dog trainer, you got to be careful how you come across that way. But if you tread lightly, let them do it their way. Yeah, let them do it their
Mhm.
way, and say, okay, let's just try it this other way, the way I'm
Mhm.
thinking. And hey, every now and then, yeah, maybe for some reason the dog is responding to them for whatever reason. Who knows? So I'll say, hey, look at you did, maybe I guess you were right. But 9 times out of 10, like what Jeff was saying, we have the experience, the knowledge base. We've been there, done that kind of thing. We've seen what's
Mhm.
happened, what's worked, what hasn't. And if they see that, wow, look at that dog's sad, or oh boy, now the dog is not eliminating where they were eliminating before, or whatever it might be, or the dog is complying. Then they're much more on board of going with that. Sometimes where this is the other thing where it's very tricky, and then it's like you're being a psychologist. You get a husband and a wife and the kids and so forth involved. You're all sitting at the kitchen table, And I've had this before where the husband starts saying, well, my wife she's the worst. She never takes the dog out. She does this, she does that. Right, honey? Right, honey? And I'm like, right, am I right, David? She should be doing this, right? I'm like, so you're putting you're pitching us. You got to
right
find
in the
that
middle.
you got to find some kind of happy medium where everyone's
Sure.
happy. No one's going to beat you up or whatever.
Yeah.
And who's
So-
writing the check? No.
Right, that too. Exactly. But it's a thing. It's like, for instance, someone's kneeling the dog in the chest or they're holding the paws, and I explain to them, and sometimes then they'll understand. Let's say they weren't trying to do that. They say, oh, I've heard if you hold their paws up, maybe they just started doing it. And if I kneel them in the chest, I've heard that's supposed to be good. That'll get them to stop jumping up on me every 2 seconds. I said, well, that might work initially, but often what happens if you're continuing to do that, now, if you're holding the dog's paws, and let's say it does work, what happens if you go to the groomer, or you go to the vet and they have to examine the dog's paw? Now the dog's pulling away or fearful, may snap, whatever. So there's that possibility. Or sometimes some of those dogs are like, oh, you want to play? Let's go play. Let's roughhouse. So it can kind of go different ways that way. And same thing with the house training and so forth. If they're busy rubbing the nose in it or spanking them in the nose or whatever, not so good. Not so good. So,
Okay.
but oftentimes I think you can come with a compromise. You might say, how if we try something like this, whatever it might be, whatever that this is, X, Y, Z.
Okay. Steve?
You guys are nice. That's all I could say.
I was wondering. Go ahead.
I'm not so nice. I'm less nice than you guys. Because I basically tell them like this. It's your dog. I'll tell you what I think. You can do it or not. As long as you realize that there's a consequence for everything. If you allow them to do these things over and over again, then they're practicing those behaviors. That's not a problem for me. If you understand that you're allowing them that, and that they're going to get good at the very behavior you're complaining about, then you might want to try something that I might suggest. If you don't like it, or you don't want to do it, that's fine. Because it's your dog. You live with them, not me. I'm here to try to help. If you don't want to go,
You're there to train the dog, as you say.
If there's, if it's in your head that you don't like it, well, then maybe it's okay. If it's a jumping problem, maybe it's okay that the dog jumps. But if I'm going to come out and you tell the dog jumps, I'm going to say, well, you trained him to jump. And they're going to say did not, and I'm going to say did so. So I'll remind them that when that little puppy put his feet up, they scratched him under the chin or loved him up somehow. If you want to keep doing that, you'll keep having jumping. So what do you want from me? You want me to have you do something negative to the dog because you trained him to jump? How crazy is that? You want to stop it? Don't do it. Just stop what you're doing if you don't like the outcome. It's a simple thing. I mean, it's really kind of simple. But if you don't really like it, maybe I'm not your guy. Maybe you prefer somebody who's going to come out and kind of try to remedy the things you already trained. But if you understand that you're looking at a dog that you've trained somehow, you trained him to pull because you followed him on a tight leash. You trained him to jump because you reinforced that, jumping. And you keep doing it, right? What do you want from me? If you keep doing it, you're going to get what you reap what you sow, isn't that what they say? So what do I can only suggest to you that, here are some ways perhaps that you could avoid, like if you already have the problem, because you already trained it, well, maybe you just untrain the behavior by stopping paying attention. Maybe it's as simple as that. Or like, I like John Rogerson, I always appreciated his thing. And a couple of years ago, I saw him do a seminar on YouTube. He basically said, come when you walk in, every person who walks in the door goes to the nearest window, looks out the window, and verbally speaks what they see for 2 minutes. I see a tree, I see a leaf, I see a car. You look out the window. The dog could be jumping on your back. You ignore it. By the end of 2 minutes, dogs have stopped jumping. They realize you don't care. You're not into where they are, what they're doing. You got your own thing going on. And then you just ignore the dog for a while. When it finally settles, you could call it over, this kind of thing. According to Rogerson, and a guy I trust, within 2 weeks, if every single person walks in the door, turns around, looks out the window, you won't have a jumping dog anymore. So you don't really necessarily have to give them physical fix. You just have to give them some kind of a road to follow that maybe they can do. Maybe they don't like that idea. That's fine. But if you want to hammer the dog,
Mm.
you're going to have to call somebody else. So I'm not going to do it. I can give you some ways that I'm comfortable with, and if that's not doesn't sort of align with your way of thinking, I am sure you can go in the yellow pages and find somebody that will do it the way you want to do it. But I'm not
Mm.
that guy. I'm just that's it. I don't
And
mind hiring somebody.
and then Steve, if does often the person say, "Okay, I'll try what you're suggesting"?
Hmm.
Do you find that?
I don't care. Really, my job is to offer, and it's their job to either take it or not.
Hmm.
And I mean, I get paid for giving them the advice, right?
Mm.
And I would like them to follow through. We all like it when our clients' dogs all of a sudden spin around and they call up and they say, "Wow, that was awesome! You gave me some great suggestions, and it's really a different situation here." It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you, where somebody calls up and says, "You changed my life," and that makes you
Mhm.
feel real good. It is a reciprocal thing, not just about the money. It's about you want to do a good job, and you want to know you did a good job, and you want to know that you salvaged the relationship and all that.
Mhm.
It's not just about the cash.
Hmm.
So you want that, but in order to get that, they have to take the the advice or the instruction. If they don't do it, what are you going to do? Well, you can do what Jeff said. You can sock them a shot. You know what I mean? But you can't really. It's just
Not
like,
if
oh,
anybody's watching, at least.
yeah, well, no matter
Do it
what,
off, do it off property.
That's all. Yeah.
drag them in the house after you knock them out. So it's like, listen, it's
Boy, this is a violent one today.
I wonder why.
their pet. It's their pet, and they will. I run into the muzzle thing all the time. I run into there's a lot of dogs that need the muzzle. It takes away the bite option. Is it going
Hmm.
to cure the problem? I don't know the answer to that. There are some dogs they find another coping mechanism for their stress, and they don't think about the mouth after a while. You've taken the option away, and it helps. At the very
Mhm.
least, it prevents injury. It's a good tool. Is it ugly? You're supposed to tell them it's ugly before you take it out of the bag so they don't freak out. And then you can say to them, if it's a female dog, they come in pink now. And
They do. All patterns.
you can try to lighten
Yeah.
it up. I do that all the time. I'm like, oh, head halters come in colors now. I mean, I do my best to try to minimize the angst that I know they're going to have when they have to put on a tool. But you say to them, listen, whatever it is, when you get a puppy, and you put a collar on them for the first time, they walk maybe one step, sit, scratch, walk two more steps, stop, sit, scratch. Do they like the collar? They hate it. You put a harness on
Yeah.
a puppy, they roll around, try to bite it off. So is this so different? You put a strange item on your dog, you expect that it's just gonna it's gonna be okay, this is cool. The process, teaching them, like I see people now, they're going doing things like this with their fingers, and they teach the dog to put the face through, and they give them a reward. They click them and feed them for that. Like, put your nose in there, and then they go like this, and they throw their nose in there, and they teach them outside of the muzzle idea to place your face, and then they can start with the basket, and they put their face in the basket. Like in my tracking days, they used to say, train the find, right? So they're supposed to indicate when they find something on a track. They say train the find off the track.
Mm.
So just throw something down and teach down or sit or whatever the behavior you're looking for when they find something. Train it off the track so that you don't end up making them crazy on you got how many things at once can you do? So you can, this doesn't have to be about the muzzle initially. You can
Hmm.
go through this little process of, guess what? You can train your dog. It's a lot of fun. And then you can teach them to put their face in the muzzle. You won't feel so bad if your dog comes running over and sticks his face in the basket, right, for a piece of chicken through the front or whatever, and then you strap it on and play with them a little bit, take it off. I mean, there's a process that you can go through that will maybe minimize it, where they don't have to look at their dog going berserk or trying to rub the thing off or jumping up and down and freaking out. You can talk to them about it. Still, some of them are like, I'm not doing that. And I'm like this. I don't need the liability of your dog biting somebody
Hmm.
after we have a consult, and I'm suggesting that the dog isn't safe to be walking around without some kind of something on his face to prevent a bite. I don't really want to get dragged into court with you when the time comes because you're not willing to help. right? Because that's what we're looking to do, save your dog, right? Isn't that that's what they're calling about? My dog is dangerous. Well, if you want to save his life, then you're going to have to do some things. Maybe you won't be as comfortable with these things as you should be, but Joe Bevan, the monk, told me years and years ago, if you want to be a really good dog trainer, you're going to have to get comfortable with some things that you're really not that comfortable with.
Mm,
And I think that there's a piece to that, right?
mm,
Like putting a pinch on your dog that you don't really want to because it's not really who you are. But you run into a situation where you see this may be the tool that can help this dog. I don't like this tool myself, but you know what? If I can help the dog, maybe I need to use this tool temporarily just to make some headway. You may have to get comfortable with doing something on behalf of the dog that you're really not comfortable with. I thought that was really pretty good advice.
Wow.
mhm.
And that seems like a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like, as usual with these topics, it's complicated, as we all know, but that there's a lot of different ways of doing things, and that each trainer has to figure that out for themselves, what that means. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And we will see you next time. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye-bye.